You know, every now and then, I think that the Assetto Corsa modding scene is done surprising me. Surely by now, over a decade later, everything that can be done has been done. But time and time again, I am proven wrong. The work done by Ilya and Peter on both the custom shaders patch and Pure has been nothing short of a miracle for the game's longevity, and now bigger and better open world maps have become more possible, and extremely popular. The Shotoko Revival project alone has a community that eclipses entire video games, and of course has spawned a lot of offshoots. But something has always been missing in Assetto Corsa's open worlds. The SRP team actually has done a lot to try and disguise this by adding boats, trains, vehicle traffic, and whatever else, but people, actual walking humans, have never existed in Assetto Corsa. That is, until now. Too Real, a mod project that aims to add dynamic and customizable traffic to essentially any map in AC, just a few weeks ago dropped a major update adding pedestrian traffic to their mod. And it's super easy to install. Now, because this has to be hand-built for every single map, you know, it's not like there's just already data out there for where the people should be walking around on every map. That means that only a few maps have existing files for functioning pedestrian traffic right now, but of course, my favorite AC map of all time, SRP, is one of those lucky few. And this just means that, yet again, my favorite sim driving experience has gotten even better. Now, it's worth mentioning that, similar to their vehicle traffic system, with some minor effort, you could add pedestrians into any map you want, which means that in time, there will probably be existing mod files for just about any popular map out there. But even if there isn't, I could still go in and add pedestrians myself with enough time and effort. Now, regulars of my channel are probably laughing to themselves a bit right now because of how often I actually bring this up for any game, and it's definitely a bit of a hot take because to some people, the whole pedestrian traffic thing just isn't important whatsoever. Whenever I bring up the lack of life in a racing game's map, usually pertaining to the lack of people walking around, even in what are supposed to be busy cities, I always get a few comments saying, well, why does that even matter? It's a racing game, who's looking at that stuff? But for me, it really sells the experience. It just feels weird and completely unimmersive to drive through what are supposed to be bustling and lively cities, but there's nobody to be seen. Vehicle traffic can certainly help with this, and obviously that's what has made maps in Assetto Corsa like SRP feel way more dynamic and alive. Again, also paired with other public transit, like an actual functioning tram and boats moving around the harbor. But I've kind of just made my peace with the fact that this decade-old game would never get pedestrian traffic because, yeah, I'll admit it certainly isn't the highest priority in a racing simulator. Even though AC's mod community is massive and there are so many people working on so many different things, you know, I still feel like I'm probably in the minority a bit for thinking that people walking around in a racing sim is something that's important to work on. That said though, can we all just appreciate how cool this is? I mean, I'm in a fully detailed, highly accurate racing sim, but also in a massive open world one-to-one recreation of Tokyo's highway network and surrounding areas with up-to-date graphics, realistic vehicle traffic, and people walking around Shibuya Crossing. And if anywhere in the world is a good case for having pedestrian traffic, the busiest intersection on Earth is probably that place. Like, let's be honest, 90% of us are sim racing because it lets us live out a fantasy. And for SRP, that fantasy is traveling to and street racing in 90s Japan during the height of the Wangan racing scene. And while a lot of that experience is focused around the driving, for this map anyway, I feel like there's also a focus on sightseeing and exploring. For me, and I'm sure at least some of you watching, there's also a personal connection to these areas. I've driven on this highway, I've walked these streets. Heck, I stayed at a hotel a few blocks away from here. So for me, it's fun to relive that, and obviously be able to drive a little faster than I did when I was there in real life. And of course, in real life, these parts of Japan are packed with people almost all day. So even having this basic implementation goes so far to make it feel more like the real thing. And for what it's worth, yes, this is just a pretty basic implementation. The release post for this mod states that they have a lot of cool ideas to improve on this further, and they're asking for feedback. Right now, there's only 3 human models, a bald guy, guy with hair, and girl with extremely long eyelashes. But in a response to a comment, they said that they want to optimize these models first, and then could go about adding more. I think it could be really cool to have a system similar to how their traffic works. And for those out of the loop, their traffic system has separate spawn pools of cars for different regions of the world. For example, you can set the traffic to European for more European cars, or Japan for more Japanese traffic. I think it'd be neat if maybe the same thing worked for the pedestrians, where you could have a big pool of potential models to spawn in, but then could tweak the spawn rate or something depending on where in the world the map takes place. It would obviously be cool to see some better animations here too, maybe a bit more variety. You know, you could have some people walking around on their phone or talking to another person next to them, or heck, maybe someday even have them interact with props like benches or garbage cans or something. I think the systems required to do that would be much more involved, but I mean, hey, we're already here. You never know what's possible with AC modding these days. One thing that I really would want to see though, that I think is pretty doable, is a variety of stationary models. Right now, the 3 models just walk. You set spawn points and then paths for them to follow, and they just kind of loop around their set path. I'd love to be able to set stationary people, you know, along a fence or maybe against a wall or something, because having actual 3D people that are animated and cheering or even just leaning up against something could add a lot more variety and have a lot more value for racetracks. Imagine if you could add something like Forza Horizon's fans to any map in the game. Assetto Corsa does already fill stands with 2D sprites, but then you could go in and fill those empty spaces with more 3D animated sitting people, and maybe some that are standing up and cheering, and then even have areas closer to the track filled with fully 3D animated cheering fans. And I think that would be super cool for rally or hill climb maps too. And I think this at least is totally possible. You could just add a new model with a different animation and then not give them another waypoint to walk to so that they stand still and loop through whatever animation they have. I'm also really curious if this works online. I haven't tested that yet, but I think in theory, if the players have the mod and the server hosting the map has the files in the track data, it should work. If anyone knows that, I'm definitely curious to find out, because I really want to get this implemented into some of my own online servers whenever I host them. Anyway, I don't want to get too into the weeds on the techie nitty-gritty of the mod and its potential. This is still insanely cool as is, and I do want to shout out to Real for making it. I can't wait to see what improvements it gets over time, and heck, maybe I'll dive into it a bit more and see if I can make some of my own pedestrian mod files for some of my favorite maps that don't yet have them. So if you do want this mod, you will need to join up to their Patreon at the middle tier to get access to it, but you also get their police mod as well, and then they're yours to keep as is. It installs like anything else. You're just dragging and dropping files to get the main mod, and then dropping map-specific files into each map that has an existing traffic or pedestrian mod file. Then there's an app you can enable in-game to mess with settings, and that's really all there is to it. So thanks to 2Real for making this. I still can't get over how cool it is even this early on, and thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you in the next video.